in thinking about entertainment and Hollywood specifically, like you and I had a separate conversation where you brought up how like the projects that are getting the green light, the things that are getting made are centered around Black trauma again.
Yes.
And it's like, where does it end? Do we get, are there any spaces that we can go to where we're not reminded of that constantly? Because that's not the sum of what we are. We're so much more than that on an individual basis, collectively, like globally, like we're much more than our trauma.
I'm Sharmon.
I'm Katie.
And this is Unpacking Ethical,
a podcast where we sip our favorite drinks at the moment
and talk about some things.
Because there's nothing ethical about upholding the status quo.
Let's talk about it.
This week on Unpacking Ethical.
Yes. Katie, what you up to? What you drinking?
So I'm keeping it simple today because it's 100 degrees outside. I have ice cold water with some lemon.
Oh, you good with the ice. I just have plain water. I've been drinking just plain like room temperature water because I feel like, I don't know what the cold does to me, but I don't know. I just like it room temperature. But I've like turned the air conditioner on, which I never do before like 8 o'clock. But I've turned the air conditioner on at like 6 something today because I was like, it is hot.
It's hot, which is why I like room temperature water too. Today I like was out running errands, so I was like, I need cold water and some fresh lemon. Just squeeze some lemon in there. It's like the best thing for this time of year. I like it all. Like I like lemon in my water all the time, but it's extremely refreshing when it's like 11 million degrees outside.
I'm like, why is it so hot? Never mind.
That's a different conversation for like 2 or 3 different episodes.
What? So it's summer in Texas. It's hot. Oof, but what are you looking forward to?
Well, so the summer's been going pretty well so far. I've been talking a lot with people that I'm like, in community with, friends and family, about like just really centering Black joy this summer and just seeing just Black people get a break,
girl,
and enjoy like, themselves, and for us
to get a break.
Yes, to thrive this summer, because as we know, like summer is usually kind of like the height of like policing like Black people, Black communities, Black bodies. Like it's summer, school is out, some people are off work, people are, taking time off for vacation or just to be with family, and like, summer block parties, there's holidays in the summer. You got Juneteenth. A lot of people don't necessarily celebrate 4th of July, but they'll still like do something. So it's just like people are out and Black people are out. And so that's why summer is always kind of like, I think can be a stressful time for Black folks, because eyes are on us more so than other parts of the year. It's like the height of it all. And so what I've been trying to, for myself, and like even like the stuff that I'm going to be putting out in the summer, is really trying to get away from Black trauma and like the white gaze of like, and of Black trauma, if that makes any sense at all. Because we had a lot of that last summer, and the aftermath of that, what the effects of that like were lingering. And it wasn't until like months later that I like, and I don't know about you, but I started to like really unpack all of last summer, like from speaking engagements to stuff that was just going on. And like, it was exhausting. It was draining. It was like, there was times where I feel like if we don't kind of like figure out a way to take control of these narratives or figure out a way to reclaim this, they're going to suck us dry. If they're like, if it wasn't us being under threat by police violence or state violence, then it was like the online bullying from white folks, and not even in the way of like just the just the outwardly racist people, but the people who think they're doing something good by commenting on how you are spending your time. If you're not tweeting or posting about what's happening in the streets, or if you're not going to protests, there were white people that had criticisms of that, like Black people not being able to just live and exist. And so this summer, I really want to see us push back against that. Like, you know, no more Black trauma for the white, none at all, but especially not looking forward to seeing any like white people like get enjoyment out of watching us suffer. Like, I don't want to deal with that again. And I know we, like, at some point, unfortunately, I hate to think of it this way, but something probably will happen and we'll handle it. Hopefully we can come together more like as a collective and handle these things, but in the ways that we see best at the time. But like, until then, I just want us to just breathe a little bit and enjoy, you know?
Yes. And it's funny that you talk about that, because I think about the videos that go around and how they just want to share the videos like over and over again. And I remember, I don't even know what happened, and it sucks that I can't even remember who it was because there have been so many.
Right.
But like, you know, people on Twitter just being like, stop sharing the video, just stop it. We've all seen this. We all know what happens. We don't need to like look at that like over and over again. It's insane. It's insane just how much it becomes entertainment. And I think in some ways we start to become desensitized to it. And 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 we shouldn't. Like, that's somebody's life. That's a human life, being. And
and I think, like, you know, in thinking about entertainment and Hollywood specifically, like you know, you and I had a separate conversation where you brought up how like the projects that are getting the green light, the things that are getting made are centered around Black trauma again.
Yes.
And it's like, where does it end? Do we get, are there any spaces that we can go to where we're not reminded of that constantly? Because that's not the sum of what we are. We're so much more than that on an individual basis, you know, collectively, like globally, like we're much more than our trauma. And it's hard to have that conversation without seeming like I don't want to seem like we're dismissing that it exists.
Right.
But like we are aware of it. It's always in the back of our minds, and some people it's in the front of their minds all the time. But it's just like, how are we supposed to thrive when we're in that all the time? We can't get a break. And like I said, if you're seeing it, you know, the movies and the series that are coming out, it's like in your face all the time. And I don't know, I've been feeling a way about, you know, we're supposed to be proud when a Black director produces a film, or a Black woman, you know, gets a project made in Hollywood, because that's not always the easiest thing. It's not common. But it's like, at what point can we take a break and say, okay, like I'm an artist and I want to tell these stories, but like, how does it affect the people? How does it affect Black people the most? Like, do they even think? I wonder about these folks. Like, do they ever stop and think, who is this for? Who am I making this project, this film, TV series, you know, Netflix series, whatever it may be? Who am I making this for? What's the impact of it? And I just feel like that feels to me unethical if you aren't asking yourself those questions, whether you're Black or not. Like, you should be thinking about the responsibility you have in sharing certain stories and the impact of it.
Right.
But I think, unfortunately, capitalism, everything always comes back to capitalism. Where people just think like, I'm gonna like, and then if you push a project through like certain major studios who back it, it's really difficult a lot of times to maintain complete control over the narrative. So it becomes even more like watered down, untrue, whatever they feel like it needs to be, because it is still for the white gaze.
Yeah.
Even if the person who's directing it or who feels like who the original produced the original script, whatever it might be, by the time it gets through all the hands it has to go through to get produced, it is absolutely for the white gaze, because that is what drives Hollywood. It's the money. And so, and in their minds, it's like white America, white audiences. This is who comes to the movie. This is who we need to make this palatable for. So,
and it's really interesting because I think it was Franklin Leonard, I think that's his name, that he did this whole study on like discovering if Hollywood like kind of took themselves out of that mentality and hired more like Black actors and directors and all those people behind the scenes and let them have like the real control, like just how much money that they have been losing from not allowing that to happen. And it was like tens of billions of dollars that they're leaving because you know, they want to think about like Black and other communities of color as having no money, and you know, they're in the lower socioeconomic status and they're not spending money. But I'm like, these people are spending money and they have a lot of buying power.
They do.
And
we do.
They're losing billions.
Right.
Billions, because they want to keep this tight control. And it just, I mean, just thinking about all that just reminds me of all the projects that have come out before. And I had talked about this before with a friend, like I struggle like watching like quote unquote Black films, or, you know, watching those TV shows. I'm like, cause I don't like to see Black people struggling. I don't like to see that. I don't want to see it. Like Empire, I lasted 2 episodes. It was this huge, like groundbreaking thing and how popular it was. But I'm like, what is this? It's like drama and backbiting and like this whole family mess dynamic that people were just like eating up. And I was like, there's nothing okay about this.
Well, and I think it goes like, you know, we're like something that I've been sitting with more and more because of ESJ and because it being a publication and because, you know, it's a form of media. I've been thinking a lot about just the harm that is mainstream media and basically dictating the stories that they want people to accept as reality, right? Like that has been that's how mainstream media has existed for like, I would say the past 70 years or so. Like it is a force. And so if you are somebody that is in that position of, you know, if you're a writer or a producer or an editor, like I really think that the ethical thing to do would be to really take a seat and think about how your art impacts the world, you know, like really think about that, because we all have stories inside us that we want to be able to tell and we want to be able to see. But like I was thinking about, because I had this conversation on a live recently where we were just kind of talking about the value of platonic friendships and how that's undervalued a lot in society. And I was thinking about Girlfriends. I watched it growing up and then I was rewatching it recently. And I was just kind of like, I didn't feel very good at times watching it like I remembered. But because of some of the storylines were like backstabbing and like Tony tried to sleep with Jones, you know, at that time, then sex addict boyfriend. Remember this? Like, and like I was thinking about Sex in the City, and that was almost never the case. Like they had drama, but their drama was always with men and boyfriends or work, and then they would come together. But I just feel like sometimes like in Girlfriends, while I still love the show and there's much to be celebrated about the time that it was created, it's still very much problematic in the way that they portrayed Black women in some ways. Like we don't only want, like, okay, yes, Joan was a lawyer and smart, like that was like this much of the show though, and that's beautiful. But it's just like sometimes I feel like Hollywood has a hard time understanding that Black people are a monolith, and like and even like as an individual there's so many layers and to explore, but it's always the same. It's always like Black women going against each other and being nasty, because almost always like Tony and Joan's friendship was extremely toxic. Like watching it now, I'm like, shit, I didn't think that then, because
Right.
you know, I just was consuming what I'm like, oh, okay, this is, you know, whatever, this is what it is. But I don't have toxic friendships like that with my best friends. Like,
Yeah.
I would never try to hurt. And I just feel like while we can like still love girlfriends, it's also important to sit back and be critical of the narratives that get pushed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I mean, you know, we're asking a lot, you know, considering what Hollywood is and how it operates.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's just, I don't even know what to say, honestly. I'm like, it's just, it's crazy. It's, oh, I guess in some ways I feel like it's a lot to expect. Well, it's not a lot. It's not a lot, but it's unfair to expect like the Black people or, you know, other marginalized communities to do the work on this.
Oh yeah,
like
definitely.
It should not be our job.
No.
And it's ridiculous that it is, and it's ridiculous that it's up to us to like say no to projects and, you know, walk away from stuff in order, you know, to just have some, you know, semblance, because we get so very little work as it is. So much stuff is going to other people anyway. And even when, I don't even remember the name of that, Malcolm and Marie. I was like, Jesus, like everybody was like, oh, you know, 2 Black actors. And I was like, 2 hours of them yelling at each other. Like no.
Yeah, I didn't love it. And I know a lot of people were kind of like critical of Zendaya, and you know, Zendaya is also like, yeah, I love Zendaya personally, but she's also like, I can't speak for her lived experience. She's also a very fair-skinned person with a certain texture hair. Like, I feel like, and I'm not going to speak for what her experiences have been like in Hollywood, but I would think that to look at her is to see someone who is probably much more palatable to the white audience than some other actors and actresses that we know of. So I kind of like struggled a little bit, but also like it was hella messy, the movie. Like they were just angry the whole time, like arguing the whole time. And it was toxic again. It was like
very
toxic. And here's the thing, like I feel you, because you know, I know there's something you're really passionate about, is like, why do we always have to like do this work? But here's what I think about too. Like, I think about when you're a struggling artist, okay, I can understand, like, God, I just need to take this job so I can get to the point to where I can make a difference. But I think about when you've gotten to that point, are you still thinking those things, or have you been bought out? And I can't, and when I think about like black folks and marginalized communities and how we experience like life in general in America specifically, because I think it's a very specific beast here. When I think of celebrity, I don't necessarily see that anymore, because now you've gotten to a place of something. I'm not saying that the hardships don't exist, but I definitely see a little bit more. There's a power dynamic there. There's more power. And then I think of people like, you know, just as an example, at myself, somebody, like, sometimes I struggle too, because it's like, I need to make money. I need to do this, but you know, there will be times where I will probably get more things offered to me than maybe like a darker skinned queer femme Black person, right? Like, so if I can use what seems like privilege that I might have in that way to say, no, I'm not going to take this, because I absolutely can say no, because I know something better might come later, and push back in that way, then I would be willing to do that. But it's just like, and I should be willing to do that. And so when I think of people who have way more power and way more money and way more connections than I have, it is disappointing. It is like, so I think about that. Like people like you and we don't have that.
Look. I was just talking to Joe Kiani about that, my friend. I'm determined that man is gonna acknowledge me.
It will happen. It will.
I don't know how it tortures me, keeps me up at night. But no, I think about that because I too wonder, because I definitely see like power dynamics, especially with like Black men in Hollywood. I feel like they have a lot more than like Black women.
Right. Oh,
but
definitely.
I struggle with like people who like Octavia Spencer, who I adore and has been in like so many movies, and she's just so incredible. Like still not being recognized for her talent, not having to fight for pay when she did the Self-Made movie. And I'm like, that's like, she has been in this industry and we know why.
Yeah.
We know why LeBron James had to like fight for her to get the salary that she deserves. But so I often wonder, it's like the people that we think have power don't have as much as we think. But at the same time, there's definitely those that can do, because Chadwick did it, right?
Right.
That's so I'm like, saying. It's possible.
It's possible. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, and the thing is that we like, when I'm thinking of people who might have power, I'm thinking of like you said, Black men. Specifically, like, let's talk about like, because we're a gendered society, and that's also an element that impacts people, but Black straight men, right, in Hollywood.
Yes.
The Jordan Peels and, those kinds of folks. And then, or I think about like Tracy Ellis Ross, who I don't have any criticisms of her, but I'm saying like someone who would probably have more weight and privilege in that she is Diana Ross's daughter. She has been in the industry for a very long time. She is a light-skinned, Black person. She's mixed. Like, so I think about those people. I think about like Black straight men. And I think like to really let it sink in that, and I know I say this all the time, people probably gonna get tired of me saying this because it probably doesn't feel real, but it is very real in my heart. I'm just not in a position to make it happen yet. But what's the point of moving forward alone? Why are you not moving forward together?
Yeah.
There's always room. And Octavia Spencer actually in Hidden Figures did that. Like I talk about this all the time, and I'm going to drill it because it is probably the single most powerful moment I've seen in a movie in my entire lifetime. Was when they came, because they were then at that point, NASA was replacing their department. They were getting computers to do their work. Right. And they told her she had a job, but that a lot of her employees, because I think she was a management level, were going to have to be let go. All Black women. And she said, no, I'm not taking, I get emotional when I talk about it. I know I've told you this story like a million times, but she said, no, she said, I'm not doing it. And again, it feels like the responsibility is on us. And I hate that. But like, if we are to reclaim our narratives, then we do have to take that responsibility because we need to own this. And if I say, no, I'm not taking this unless you take all of us, then what is that? They don't have a choice then. And that's exactly what happens. And then there's a scene in the movie where they're all walking together. And it's just like the most beautiful thing. And it makes me like her even more, because I imagine, even though that was a role, I just feel like that's probably who she is like in real life.
Yeah.
And I want to see more of that happening as we talk about, getting away from like Black trauma for the white gays and whatever. I don't care about educating them anymore, white people. Like, what else is there to know from, like, you already know, we've seen it all. And like, but for us, like to take ownership of what we're trying to accomplish means that we unfortunately, we're in that position to where we do have to like probably carry that weight, and it would be worth it in the end.
I hope so. Because it angers me, because just thinking about Hollywood in general, I feel like there's so many people in power that could have an impact that call themselves allies that clearly are not.
They're not. Oh, definitely not.
Like, you guys could have so much power, and instead you're talking about like, I'm an actor, it's what I do. And I'm like, like, just a couple slaps there. Like, really?
Well, and this is probably an unpopular conversation because, and I also think it's, just to say that on a side note, I think it's still good to critique Black produced art.
You have to.
Like, and it doesn't have to be like, well, everything's right with it, everything's wrong with it. But I like to be critical of my own stuff. Like, I like, where can I have improved here? So like, let's talk about like Cynthia Arrivo, who is a British Nigerian actor who has played Harriet Tubman, I think Aretha Frank, a version of Aretha Franklin.
Yes,
I heard something else, and I feel like there's also that issue in Hollywood of like Black Brits kind of like getting roles a lot more. And Samuel L. Jackson talked about this. A lot of like other Black American actors have kind of like criticized Hollywood for like the amount of Black British folks taking those roles. And that's a moment of like Cynthia Arrivo. And I like Cynthia Arrivo, but it's just like, at what did you not stop and think like, wow, like, do I need to play Harriet and Aretha and Whitney Houston? I'm just like,
yeah.
You know, like there are like literally Black American actors, because, and there's also, it's not a secret that Black folks from other parts of the world, and especially from a place like, you know, like England, would be seen as much more palatable than
and
Black
refined
American, and refined and like they, you know, that kind of thing, than a Black American actor. And so that's also kind of like where I think about like, I become extremely critical in like a negative way of somebody like Cynthia Erivo, because, and even her being like a dark-skinned queer, like, you know, Black femme, it's still like you have to realize what they're doing. They love Black British folks. Even Queen and Slim, neither one of them are Black American or have Black American like lineage at all. Like David Kaluuya is in it, and then Jodie Smith
I didn't realize she wasn't.
No, she's not Black American either.
But that's another conversation.
He's problematic.
I'm not gonna go there. Yeah, I'm like, we're not gonna go there.
We're not gonna go there. But telling those stories, and then also outside of the work, like as an actor, that's what I mean by the work. Then saying things on SNL that are problematic when you don't even understand, like you can't speak because you're not Black, you don't come from that experience. You don't get to speak for us. So that, just thinking about like unpacking all of that, and like, I'd like to see, I don't have hope in Hollywood in that way, but I'm hoping like us having these conversations, like just on this kind of like smaller scale, that it will resonate with other artists in other areas, and people will push back against doing anything for the white gaze, especially stories centered around Black trauma, and us just reclaiming like our joy and our energy, and like the joy we get in doing the work that we do, wherever that might be. Like that's just what I'm hoping for this summer and moving forward, because I'm tired of
and that, what a beautiful summer that would be. Like, I saw my girl, I'll be claiming all these people, Miss Dr. Raven the Maven. She's a Black scientist. But she had this picture of her and her husband, and she was just smiling. And I was like, you know what? I retweeted it. And I just love to see Black women happy and loved. Like, that's all I want to see.
Yeah, I love that too.
I want to see them happy, and I want to see them loved. And that would make my summer.
I, enjoyed seeing Shakira Richardson run, and and she's from Dallas, which and even somebody asked me if that was like my cousin, because my last name is Richardson, so I was like, maybe she's my cousin. I'll claim it.
I'll claim it. Just take it.
But just like starting off the summer in that way, but not only like, but it doesn't have to be like, you shouldn't have to be like a skilled runner or athlete or something like that to get the appreciation and to just be acknowledged, or to even just be respected, or to even just be allowed the space to just exist in the ways that you want to be able to exist. You shouldn't have to have any of that. Nevertheless, it is still very beautiful to see, you know, when any of us can, you know, accomplish something like that. I always feel good when when a, you know, especially a Black femme or a Black woman like is, you know, getting to achieve a lifelong goal. Or she's 21, but still, like, I'm sure she's been running since she was a kid. And so, but yeah, this is gonna be, I'm manifesting a summer where we can get a little piece of that, if not the whole piece. Like, I want to see more of it. I'm not gonna sit here and say we're gonna have a summer free of trauma and pain, because I don't know, but I know that the joy is what is going to be amplified on my end, and working toward making sure that's at the center of everything. I think that we can eventually combat this kind of nasty, like, fucking beast of like white people loving to see us suffer.
Yeah, because it's
that was good.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like we could just end it right there. Just on that last sentence, that was just perfection.
That was good.
I guess we don't really close anything out. Well, we don't have anybody. Like, we have no guests.
We have no guests, so it's just us. But people will tune into this and love it. I feel like this is a good one. All of them are good, but like, I would love, you know, for the folks that are listening and watching to kind of share, like, you know, let me just be specific. I know that anybody will be able to tune in, but I would love to be able to hear Black folks specifically comments about what we just talked about, like what your thoughts are. And because this could be an ongoing conversation, right?
Absolutely. Definitely something to talk about and to consider and just to think. And you know what I also want to hear is, like, how are you, like, claiming your joy? Like, how are you just gonna claim that for yourself?
Right. And like, what I've been thinking about too is, like, no matter where you are, like, economically or any of those things, like, how, while we still fight for equity in those ways, how are you able to like make a little bit of space for yourself to experience joy? You know, like, what does that look like no matter where you are in life? You know, without dismissing the fact that we all still, a lot of us are struggling in a lot of different ways, and, you know, some of us more than others, but like, how are you, like, I love that question, Sharmon, like, how are you claiming your joy? So I think we should end it there, because that's beautiful.
Okay, I am gonna, like, end it. I am. It's gonna happen.